Hello dolls! Honestly, what's a better way to start off this new year with a femininity video? About a year or so ago, I remember getting a comment from one of you dolls. Ebony, I'm not a big fan of my voice. I don't feel like I sound very feminine. I feel like I have a deep voice. What do I do? Immediately, I was like, oh no. Don't feel like you have to change your voice. You should learn to fall in love with your own voice. And I still do stand by that response. So present time, I'm watching a video and I'm listening to this podcast host, right? She has her own podcast. It's pretty popular. And I just noticed that she came off sounding and looking a bit cold whenever she spoke. And I found that just so interesting. She was a very pretty woman, but for some reason that stood out to me. And it made me think about that comment that I got upwards of a year ago. That brought me to want to dive deeper into that question. How do you come off sounding more feminine while still being authentic, right? No one wants to have to change their voice for the rest of their life in order to sound like a feminine woman. So I want to share with you dolls how to speak in a more feminine manner. How do you sound more feminine? If you're new here, I do post every week on femininity, elegance, and homemaking, and I would love to see you back here again. So don't forget to subscribe to me down below. All right dolls, without further ado, let's begin. I don't believe that you have to have this high-pitched fairy voice or you have to sound like Princess Peach from Mario in order to come off as a feminine woman. This is more so about adding a bit of correction and a bit of intention so you could come off sounding more feminine, and you can also speak in a more feminine manner. And overall, as women, I know that in different settings this will be very beneficial, whether it is work, relationships, dealing with hard situations. This can come in handy. First and foremost, since we already established that we are not changing the way that we sound when we speak, mainly more so just polishing it a bit. And something that can help you sound more feminine, come off more feminine to others, is to watch the volume of your voice. This is something that is very important and it's a part of etiquette. And something else that is really important is to watch the passion and the pitch of your voice. Now, I come from a Caribbean family, okay? So it's very easy for us to get very passionate and riled up even whenever we're happy, okay? Like we're having a happy conversation, but all of a sudden you hear loudness, you think that people are yelling, but no. They're just laughing. They're having a good conversation. And that's something that we may have to watch, right? Coming off a bit more loud, which could be perceived as speaking in a more aggressive way because it's loud, it's not soft. So you have to practice speaking in a softer tone, watching the way that your pitch goes up and down and how much emphasis that you put into your words. So it's very good to speak in a bit of a softer tone. That's the way that you want to practice speaking, so the words come off a bit smoother, right? A bit more creamy. Also, this is monotone, okay? Think of, I don't like mentioning them, but this is something that most people talk about, and that is Kourtney Kardashian's voice. It can be a little monotone and it's not the best because this is coming off sounding a bit more cold, right? So then you could sound a bit lazy. That doesn't come off very femininely. So you want to make sure that when you're speaking, you're not speaking lifeless, right? There's some passion in your voice, there's some excitement, but it's not too much. You have to kind of find the perfect in between. Now this may take a bit of practice, which is fine, and no one's saying that you have to completely change the way that you speak overnight. But if you do implement a couple of these tips and be a bit more aware of the way that you're sounding and speaking with others, then those small changes are possible to come about. Something else you can do, and that may come a bit more easier to you to sound more feminine, is to speak the way that you did when you first met your boyfriend or first met your husband. I remember before I got married, I would talk to my husband on the phone and I would sound a lot more sweeter, right? You're all lovey-dovey. You speak a bit more softer. You can incorporate a bit of that tone, a bit of that smoothness into your everyday words. Not sultriness. I don't know what you and your boyfriend, but a bit of that smoothness. You can incorporate that into your everyday language. We all have had that moment to where, you're talking to your man and your friends or family are like, oh my gosh, here she goes again, speaking all lovey-dovey. How come you have to sound like that whenever you're talking to him and only him? You can incorporate a bit of that feminine, a bit of that softness, right? I don't want to say sexiness because that's a little bit of that, but more so of that softness and that smoothness and that sweetness when you speak. Now, you don't have to go full-fledged kissy boo boo talk, okay? I know that if my husband calls me, he's calling up his housewife, I know that I'm going to speak to him a bit differently than I'm talking to my sister. That just happens naturally, right? Because we talk with a bit more endearment whenever we're talking to our loved one. So of course you don't want to talk to everyone in your life like that, but again, you want to incorporate a bit of those elements. Is to enunciate, speak clearly. Now, when you enunciate your words, it forces you to be a bit more mindful of what you're saying and how it's sounding. Now, you don't want to enunciate too much because then it'll come off with a bit more aggressive passion. We don't want too much of that. That's good for some situations, but not for everyday conversation. Now, if you have a country accent, my father has one and my mother has a Caribbean accent, right? I wouldn't change their accents for the world. You don't have to change your accent or sound, as some people would say or told me whenever I was little, sound a bit more white. You don't have to do that. But what you are going to practice doing is speaking more clearly, enunciating your words. Doing a bit of tongue twisters can help you with that. Enunciating your words helps you come off as a more poised lady. And being poised is such an important characteristic of a feminine woman. That is often a compliment that you will receive as a feminine woman, that you are very poised and you speak very eloquently. That is an amazing attribute to have in many different areas of your life, especially if you are looking to start a career. Now, how do you come off sounding more feminine? Well, you want to make sure that you're not doing anything that takes away from these steps, these previous tips that I've shared with you, which means no more potty mouth. Some of you will have a harder time than others to refrain from cussing. Despite how casual or how comfortable you are with the person that you're speaking to, whether they are working in a mall or if you're at a restaurant, no matter what the case may be, this is something that is rude, and that is cussing in front of others. Even if they're comfortable with cussing in front of you, that doesn't mean that you reciprocate. And as a feminine woman, you will notice that the men will refrain from cussing in front of you, that they'll take a step back because they are like, oh, there's a lady in my midst. I don't want to offend her. I don't want to let her feel like, oh, I'm talking to her like I'm talking to one of the guys. And that's something that you want to set that boundary up, especially for dating. Curse words should not be a part of your vocabulary. It doesn't come off feminine. There's nothing feminine nor elegant about a potty mouth. I know we're in the 21st century. This may seem dated, but at the same time, a feminine woman knows etiquette. She walks and talks like a lady. That's very important. Now, if you're with your closest friends and you're like, hey, we've been cussing and swearing since we were 10, take a step back, okay? The first step is not doing that in public. I go deeper into sounding and speaking in a more feminine manner in my Ladies Guide to Femininity. That's right, dolls. I am launching a course. It will be coming out very soon. In my Ladies Guide to Femininity, I will be taking a deeper dive into each of these topics so you can truly experience growth within your femininity journey and have a successful start and finish. And of course, I'll be there along the way to have a more personal approach to guiding and coaching you through your femininity journey. I compose all of these different videos, but at the end of the day, they are pretty much soft tips, right? They're a high level view, but in the guide, I'll be giving a low level view, which means I'm getting deeper into everything. So be sure to be subscribed to me down below and subscribe to the blog for more updates. I'm so excited to be launching it this year. If there's any bonus topics that you want me to include in that guide that is a bit more personal, then go ahead and leave a comment down below. Thank you, dolls, once again for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, dolls.